Yes, I'm still discussing clients. Close to Arab people. Their culture very close to us. They are warmer than Europeans.
No, I think perfect. Thank you.
International company.
Please make sure to register now or after the event. Thank you. So our next speaker is Dr. Mohammed Haji. He is a principal solution engineer at Couchbase, and he has been working there for the last 4 years. He has worked extensively on large distributed, low latency, high throughput, mission critical applications. This ranges from investment banks, telcos, instant credit card fraud detection, and online gaming. He has helped many institutes that were facing constant downtime, performance degradation, to being the most performant and being able to operate large events such as the Grand National, Cheltenham, Cyber Monday, and Black Friday. Dr. Mohammed has published many industry and academic articles and is the co-author of a book called Pro Couchbase Server, also available on Amazon. Dr. Mohammed's PhD was in Advanced Distributed Grid Computing. Please welcome him.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for attending today, and also thanks to our partner Intricacy for organising such a wonderful event. What I'll be doing today, I'll be presenting about what Couchbase is. I'll moving from relational databases to SQL technologies and the key indicators behind why that is. And then also what I'll be doing is showing you what Couchbase can offer and how it has offered it to multiple organizations ranging from telco to pay, for example, PayPal, etc. And then also giving you some use cases, why customers are using us, warrants. Questions at the end, feel free to ask those questions. So what I'll do now, I'll go to so as they pointed out, so my background is in mission critical applications. I've helped a number of customers across different verticals and different sectors. Most recently, one was Emirates Airlines. So if you're using Emirates Airline, you're probably already go to a lot of details around that. Most of you here would already have used Couchbase without realizing. People that are using iPhones, for example, I've used Couchbase in the sense the moment you log on to iTunes, that is basically powered by Couchbase. If you are using LinkedIn, the session information is already powered by Couchbase. If you're using Visa, credit cards, or Amex, Couchbase, there's a lot of technology, a lot of vendors out there that are using Couchbase for tier 1 or mission critical applications. So we'll start off with, we'll talk about engagement databases. Steve Jackson has pointed out videos of engagement database and what our customers are doing for that. There's a lot of interaction compared to what users want on mobiles. They want it to be more digital, they want to interact, and they need that to be up 24/7 a year. And if you're unable to predict what customers will do, that can provide that service. So market at the moment just needs the game. So if you look at UK, which is a very large retailer, and they're saying to us in the past edition it would have been enough, but now it's the life that are really becoming a threat to them. So they need to be able to change with the times to address those needs. So these are some facts, and so Steve Jackson's pointed out some of these facts, but just to re-emphasize, we've seen this quite a lot in Europe. A lot of companies out there, the top 500 companies, most of them, about 52%, do not exist in the last 15 years. They've disappeared. Like, for example, if you look in the UK, we have something called Woolworth, a big retailer. It wasn't able to move the times. It no longer exists. A lot of also retailers, firms in the UK, such as House of Fraser, Debenhams, etc., they're facing a lot of challenges because other organisations in the field are able to compete and able to actually satisfy the customers. Just need that engagement. If you can't provide that, then you no longer will be able to actually survive in this competitive market. What it is also in some of the actual research in that 2020, what you'll see is more about customer satisfaction. So it's no longer about the brand or the cost of the thing. It's all about how is that customer, is your customer satisfied? If it is, then they'll become loyal and they'll continue to use that application. So there's a lot of statistics out there that show that you need to be able to organize to transform for the digital economy. And also you have these things, 5G that's coming soon, where you have devices interacting with other devices. So it's no longer humans interacting with other humans, but it'll be devices interacting with other devices. And you need to be able to cope with that loss of data and that type of volumes. So you need a technology that can cope with that. And the challenge that customers are facing is an extensive amount of money to actually function and run on that. Facts, and these are well-known established facts that customers are seeing in organisations, and they're taking heed of this and they are transforming. The thing is, why a lot of challenges in the existing infrastructures, why can't they actually cope with all these transformations? And the reason is you have a lot of different aspects. So customers would like to be able to actually interact with the system. You have stuff like indexing the data, such as like querying the data, you need the caching mechanisms on top of that. The problem is the amount of data. If you have data, data is king, and you don't understand that person. So having that 360 view, that customer, when did he actually interact with us, what did he buy, when did he buy it, how much he's spending, you're able to build that profile of that individual. Now, if you're unable to do that in real time, what happens is that you have advertisements that are targeted a day later or 2 days later. Customers get the look they want. If you want to advertise something to that customer, that's no longer valid in the sense of educational power on something that's no longer relevant to that customer. So when we talk about PayPal, you'll see what they do. They process that data in real time, they target that individual there and then. So if it's something you have done in the past to analyze that database, the next operation that comes along, they say, well, this guy has some shoes, he's likely to actually want somewhere. Where is there an offer individual there and then? Because if you're in take a flight and go to Jeddah, individual, that there is an offer in reality because you're no longer there. So it's very important that you do this in real time, and that's why customers need that type of processing. So in traditional systems, you have analytics, you have transactional databases, which is good. In databases will never disappear, you'll still have those there. But to be able to have that engagement with that customer, we need something different to be able to do that. So what we do, emphasising the fact, as Steve has already pointed out, you have multiple different types of categories of databases. And what we see here in this current era is the engagement database, where you need to engage with that customer. And also what we see in, for example, in the UK, we have something called Sky, which is basically a cable provider. And the biggest challenge with them is that customers pay for that service. And there's a particular, like the Football Premier League or something called Game of Thrones. A few minutes before that starts, people log onto that system. And the problem is that they get a congestion of traffic and they can't cope with that. So they use the traditional relational databases and that couldn't cope. So customers are complaining, saying, look, we are paying for this service. If you don't get a proper service, we either want a refund or we'll look for a different vendor. So they're forced to look for a technology that can support that type of peak activity. And what they've looked at multiple technologies and they're using us to be able to handle those peaks, because with Couchbase, you can add on the fly when you require it. So here are the actual platforms, the data platforms, why traditional systems are not coping. So here what we see here is the rigid schema. So in relational databases, those who are developing relational databases or those who are architects here, they'll understand and appreciate that it's a very rigid schema. You need to normalize the data, you need to make sure you don't have referential integrities. If you do a change in one table, you need to ensure that you have the foreign key, you have the actual primary key, it's not affected. Stuff like that is good, but at the moment you want to actually have real-time interaction, or the business comes with a requirement and says to you that, okay, our competitor is providing this service, we need to be able to provide that service and even better. If you're waiting 6 months to provide or launch an application, you're no longer in that competitive edge. So you need a technology that's able to actually dynamically change the data fabric without affecting your system. The other thing is also scalability. So what we see here in major events, peak seasons, if you have like the Hajj season or the actual Eid season, you have a high traffic of activities. And if you can't cope with that, very rigid schemas, servers, If, for example, you want to increase your application service, you're able to do that quite easily. You just add more application servers, it distributes the actual load of that, you can cope with that. The biggest bottleneck that you have is the actual data fabric. In traditional systems, you have some is you can't scale that out. So if you want to partition that data, it's very, very difficult, and it requires a lot of skill sets to be able to do that. What you want to be able to do is you say, well, okay, well, I have an application tier, but also the data fabric should be able to actually expand dynamically as a requirement. Now, with these systems that you'll see, as we talked about Amadeus, etc., where they have all these high volumes, or Visa, for example, they can't cope with these type of systems. It's just too rigid. They want to be able to actually add service with the requirement. And the biggest challenge that we see with one telco provider in the UK last year is that because they weren't able to add the service that they require in real time, they had to actually suffer and they had to actually absorb the cost of something where someone secured a massive deal, the number of interactions flooded the system, and they couldn't cope. So what they had to do is they just had to absorb the cost and not bill the customer. And that's not a very good, successful business model. You want to be able to actually understand what the customer's behavior and be able to bill them for what they're using. So if you look into this aspect here, what you want in the system, in your system, is that as you scale, you scale your data fabric. And the key thing here is that as you scale your data fabric, it shouldn't have any performance impact on the application. The customer should not be aware that you're adding now 20 servers or 30 servers. There shouldn't be any downtime at all. And that's a quite critical aspect. Is that some technologies will say to you, yeah, you can add servers, but there'll have to be downtime. That's not a very productive system because customer experience drops quite dramatically. The other aspect here, if you look into this, is what Couchbase offers. So as Couchbase, over the years, we've evolved. We had a lot of interaction with customers, a lot of interaction with telco organizations, a lot of interaction with airline industries. What are your requirements and what are your needs? So with Couchbase, we're an organization that listens to customers, absorbs the information, and adopts that, looking at what the roadmap is, what we currently offer now, and what the future trend is. So if you look at this, we started off as being a cache and a persistent disk. Now we have multiple services. So for example, now you're saying, well, I need a querying language that I have a skill set from my Oracle days or from IBM days, from SQL days that I learned at university or have been an architect. I need to transfer those skills for a NoSQL vendor. Couchbase provides those APIs, and we can talk about that later in the presentation, where it's based on the Answer 92 SQL standard. So stuff that you'll be using in SQL, you can use it with Couchbase. And also, for example, you're looking at full text. Customers have said to us, we have a lot of data in our systems, but we want to filter certain elements, we want to see for certain patterns. That capability is provided within Couchbase. Also, customers are looking for an event-driven engine, where certain events come into the system, you want to be able to trigger those, you want to actually trigger a workflow. So what Couchbase offers, if you look at this diagram, it offers an ecosystem where you're able to process your data in one system. And the biggest challenge that customers are facing is that they have multiple different systems. So data comes into one, you log into the application, then you need to actually transfer the data to a different system, have property systems, and that experience of the customer. Couchbase basically has one box where you're able to actually enable these services. So you can say, well, I want now the full text search, you have those services, I want the index service, you have that. And in the future, in version 6, you'll have analytics where you say, well, now look, I need to do very, very large computational tasks. You can enable those services. So the key behind this is that all the data is provided in one platform, so you don't have to actually start transferring your data to other different platforms. And that's quite key because what you're looking at is not basically minutes or seconds, it's milliseconds or microseconds. That competitive edge is very important. So the moment you start transferring data to a different tool, again, that's a cost and also an impact on your performance. So you want the data in one particular place and you want to enable those services on top of that. So here, just to give you an example of Couchbase, just to give you a little overview, there are some logos here, but we'll go into more detail. But Couchbase, we have data centers across the globe. Our headquarters is in Mountain View, in London office, where me and Steve are based. We have presence in basically the UAE and also now here in Couchbase for our partner intimacy, and also have presence in also Australia. We have data centers in the sense, for example, support centers we have in the UK, we have the Manchester office, also in India, we have the Indian office, and also in San Francisco. So we have follow the sun process. We have SLAs, so when you use Enterprise Edition, there are strict SLAs that we honor depending on what level, whether from silver to gold to platinum. And we have offered those for customers. And as you see, you probably might not have heard of Couchbase, as I pointed out, but you are using Couchbase without realizing that. So these are some logos. I mean, there's hundreds of logos out there that are using Couchbase. If you go onto Google, type in Couchbase, PayPal, Couchbase, and Ryanair, Couchbase, and Visa, you'll see a lot of extensive customers talking about our technology. Now, when I was in other industries, you'll basically just sell the product, and the customer will basically not talk about who the vendor is, either with the customer edition. They're willing and happy to talk about the technology. We were with a client in Turkey last week, and he said to us the technology is very easy, simple to deploy, and basically it's rapid to actually use. And they were quite happy with that, and they were more than willing to actually give a reference about the technology. So it's a very robust and very strong technology, and I would encourage anyone in this room that you want to test it out. It's very straightforward. You download it, you basically double-click the executable file, and you have the server up and running quite easily. So Couchbase has distinctive capabilities. There's a lot of distinctive capabilities within Couchbase. There's a number of those. So you probably will say, well, look, there's a number of NoSQL vendors. So what's the difference within Couchbase? Why are customers using Couchbase, and why haven't I heard of it? So what we'll do in this section, we'll go through the capabilities of Couchbase. We'll go into some details around it. This is more of a high level. Tomorrow we'll go into a lot more technical depth around these. But if you do have questions, just feel free to ask those questions. So the thing is, the most important thing customers asked us, as a question here in the audience, well, is it the hardware or is it the actual architecture of the infrastructure? So if you look into this, when you do an operational transaction, in traditional systems, what it does, it hits the disk, and that's it. If you want a replication, you have to enable replication. In Couchbase, by default, it has a cache and a persistent disk the moment you actually install it. So the moment you actually install it, it has a cache and a persistent disk. Now, with other technologies, if you want that, you either you have the actual data fabric, and then you add on top of that a caching mechanism, or what